Welcome everybody to Bubbles with Bethany. I'm very excited that you're all here. I will remind you all when you come on, I'm just going to let people sort of stroll in here for a minute. When you come on, just make sure you're on mute unless you have questions. If you do have questions, you'll get a chance to ask them. If you can't come off mute or come on your camera, we would love to see your faces, but if you can't, that's fine. Just type your questions into the chat that you have for Ashley, and we will get to those. I know a couple of you sent some questions in already ahead of time, so we'll get to those as well. And I am so excited this week, you guys, because I have a very special guest who she's one of the Bigger Pockets OGs. She is an author of 2 amazing books that you're going to get a chance to win if you stick around till the end, because we're going to give away 2 books. She is the she's a wealth guru. It's actually in her name. I hate the word guru. Sorry. She's an expert in wealth creation. It's actually in her Instagram handle, Wealth from Rentals. And she is short-term rental queen. Any questions you might have, but she literally, you guys, wrote the book on partnerships, which is such a huge thing that I'm always talking about, which is leveraging other people's everything. And that is a lot of what her book on partnerships is about. And I'm going to let Ashley Kerr tell you all about that. Welcome, Ashley. Cheers to you. Thanks for joining us on Bubble.
Hey, yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. And I see
Everyone, thank you
so
so much for
good getting her
joining.
steps in.
I'm walking very slow because I've learned if I walk too fast, I start to get really out of breath and it gets really embarrassing.
I'm so impressed though. I left my treadmill thing downstairs and I really need to bring it up here for when I'm on Zooms. I would be able to then also you guys, she gets like 22,000 steps in a day lately. And she joined, I only joined 2 days late. You joined what, 2 weeks late, and you
Yeah,
still made up that gap.
yeah, I had to. I don't want to lose.
No, and you're not in last place.
Yeah,
So I'm it's funny because I'm like, okay, look, there's nobody else who's gonna catch Pinky in first place. So I think
right.
it's just a game between the rest of us at this point.
Yeah,
And my thing is like just stay in the top 3 so you're not chasing it. Like that was,
yeah,
that
yeah.
was my thing the whole time. But you're catching everybody, so we should probably all really move our asses. So anyway, thank you so much for joining. I really do appreciate it. I was kind of excited because I'm like, oh, I want to get all of our fit and fabulous ladies to come join us on Bubbles so that when we all get together, like we'll have had, some virtual champagne together or
Yeah.
whatever. But everyone who's joining us today, they're all real estate investors. And I know you have some really interesting stuff to talk um, about that about a boot camp that you have coming up, and I'll let you talk about that in a second. But I really want to ask you before we get into it. I always talk about staying in your lane, and that the best way to scale your business and the best way to grow and the best way to actually be happy is to figure out what you're amazing at, figure out what really lights you up, call that your lane, and then stay in it. So a lot of times we figure out what our unique superpowers are by defining that lane. And so I know that you've got a scalable business. I know that you've done amazing things in your business, which tells me that you've got some amazing unique superpowers that you've decided are your lane. So, Ashley, what is your unique superpower?
I would say that there are 2, and one is problem solving. Is that I almost get an adrenaline rush when something is like urgent and time is of the essence, trying to like figure it out, and then that satisfaction and that reward of making that happen. And then the second thing would be making connections between people, connecting somebody who, needs this person or vice versa. I think I'm very good at figuring out what a person's needs are and how I can help them connect to the right person and kind of do that matchmaking between 2 people.
And I've seen that work firsthand, but on the problem solving side, that must like so you do a lot of short-term rentals, a lot of single family. You must be a whiz at diligence. I say that because I'm going through diligence right now, and I feel like there's a new problem every 45 minutes. So you must get such a rush out of doing diligence.
Yeah, and actually the majority is long-term rentals that I'm doing and some commercial properties. But yeah, I think, and even like the funding of things, I'm really bad at, I will buy something, like put in offers and everything without having any idea of how I'm actually going to pay for it. And that kind of creative financing, I've gotten really good at problem solving of okay, how am I going to end up paying for this, and figuring out some kind of unique strategy to get the deal done, to actually close on it. So yeah, I think during like the due diligence of a property, of the problem solving, I love that I can have an advantage around other people who, you know, just look at, oh, there's foundation issues, we don't want it. Oh, this is happening, instead of actually finding a way to solve the problem so that you can actually move forward with the deal where it actually scared somebody off. So I actually just closed on my first haunted house last week. It's a 5-unit, it's 4 residential units, and the downstairs, it used to be an old Western bar. It's called the Western House, this building. And so the downstairs was all gutted, new subfloors, new electric, new plumbing, everything. It just nothing finished in it. There's no drywall, anything like that in it. But the apartments upstairs, 2 people were living in one of them, and then one was vacant but rent ready, and then the other one needs just some cosmetic updating. So we, you know, this is in the town that I grew up in. So I've heard stories about it. I like swear that I went on a field trip and they like told us about it being haunted before. So I ended up Googling it. And, you know, there's some stories out there that it was the bar owner's daughter that was murdered there and she haunts the place and things like that. So my business partner, he doesn't believe in ghosts. So I said, okay, if anything ever happens in there, I get freaked out, you have to go in there any other time, I won't. But nobody wanted to touch this place just because it's an older building, it's big. The downstairs has sat vacant for about 10 years. And so we ended up getting seller financing on this deal because nobody else was willing to take a risk on it. And we ran our numbers as if only the 4 apartments were rented and the bottom stayed vacant forever, and we would still cash flow really great on it. We got seller financing, 10% down, amortized over 30 years at a 3% interest rate. So one apartment covers our mortgage payment on this property. Another apartment covers our insurance and our property taxes and our lawn care fee. And then we have a couple utilities that we pay. So just 2 of the units being rented out, less than half the building, pays for our expenses. And nobody had asked the seller. The seller had been trying to sell his property for 3 years. Nobody ever asked him if he would be interested in doing seller financing. Everybody just, you know, either tried to give him a cash offer or they tried to give him bank financing, but they were such low offers because that's the only way it would work. But we were able to give him closer to what he wanted because of doing the seller financing set up that way.
That's incredible. And I feel like it's a value add to market a haunted house.
Yeah, that's what everybody keeps saying. It's like worst case scenario, you know, if it doesn't work out, just putting a regular business in there, you can do something along the haunted theme or whatever.
Right. Get one of those ghost hunter shows or whatever to come
Yeah,
at it, or just charge a premium to come stay in a haunted house.
yeah.
That would be awesome. I would do it. I would do it. Wait, favor. I stayed at a haunted hotel in Savannah, Georgia. It was awesome.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah. That's so fun. Okay, you gotta play up the history of it, right? Or because do you have to disclose it? I mean, I guess it's not like a proven fact, right? So it's not like when if I were to like fill out an application to stay there, would you have to be like, yeah, people think it's haunted?
No, there's no like disclosure.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
see you could.
Yep.
Like you have to prove that's true.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I
That's
mean,
so
if I like knew for a fact that like somebody was recently murdered in there or something like that, you'd have to disclose it, but there's no actual record of that happening because that would have had to been disclosed to me when I purchased it
right.
too.
Cool. Where is the property?
It's outside of Buffalo, New York. So it's in a small town. It's right on Main Street. It's a great location and actually has a vacant lot that came with it too. So there's potential for that too, to build something, develop it eventually, or, you know, if a restaurant actually did want to go into this building, we could turn that into like a courtyard patio for it too, or just more parking.
Oh, that's really cool. Well, congratulations. So you're done with that deal already, or you've
I
acquired it?
closed on it. Yeah, we actually rented the vacant unit today and then rehab started on the other unit today. So that should be done
Congratulations.
in a week. Yeah.
That's so cool. Awesome. Well, so I guess that's what you mean by creative finance. Are there other ways that you've put that skill to use with create? I know seller financing is a really good one.
Mhm.
Any other methods of creative finance? I know there's a lot of new syndicators on here or listening that would be interested to know what other ways that you can figure out how to buy a property as you go.
Yeah, so you can partner with somebody that has a VA loan. So that was another thing I did. And we
Yeah.
ended up not using the VA loan. We purchased a property that had two houses on it, and he was going to use his VA loan and live in one of the units as his primary residence. And then we were going to do a JV agreement for the other property where we would rent it out and we'd, you know, split that property 50-50. But it ended up working out where we just did a conventional loan on it anyways and didn't need to use his VA loan. But another thing I've done with partners is I've had them get I've actually had them be the mortgage holder and given them equity. So they're not just investing their life savings, which in case this partner was, he actually was the mortgage holder and had a note on the property and received a mortgage payment every month. So he was getting his principal and interest paid back every month, and he had some equity in the property too. And that was our first deal together. And it was actually my very first deal. And it established some credibility with me where, okay, like deal one is done and proven, let's move on to the next one. And now it's not the same structure because I've kind of proven myself there and I definitely have it more favorable to me, but that was a great way for me to get started, was to give someone else very favorable terms to, you know, invest their capital into the deal. One other way that I like too, that is if you have a brokerage account that has usually like the limit is that you have to have at least $100,000 in a brokerage account, and it can't be retirement funds. You can actually use that brokerage account as collateral for a line of credit. And you get really favorable interest rate terms because it's way more liquid than if your house is collateral. The bank has to go through the foreclosure process and they actually have to sell it to recoup their money. So you get a better interest rate. So finding different ways to find money besides just under your mattress is one of the things that I love doing. So for example, another thing we did was we got a commercial line of credit. So instead of actually putting a mortgage on a property, I got a commercial line of credit on an investment property. And that's how I use to fund all my rehabs. I use that line of credit instead of having to use a hard money lender. If I don't have a property, I'm not paying any interest or anything. That money goes. And then I'm not using my own cash either. My cash right now is sitting in a 5.5% interest account, and it's still there as my reserves. And then I'm pulling off my line of credit when I need to for a project.
That's brilliant. That's actually a really great idea. You're giving me ideas too for like, I think I need to do a line of credit. Uh, that's really cool. And I do want to talk about your books, but before we do that, I'm always talking about that one of my passions is to help people create conscious wealth. And my way is helping people learn how to raise money from other people and through real estate investing. But conscious wealth is one of those things that it means something different to everybody. And so now I always ask when I get to talk to somebody, like I'm talking to you, is what does conscious wealth mean to you?
So conscious wealth, as far as what I see for myself in the future, it's taken me a long time to get to this realization. because I feel like as you get to, you put yourself into the real estate world and you're surrounded by all of these people who are building wealth and all the things they're doing. I went through this phase where I built up my long-term rental portfolio. I, kind of got bored with it. And I'm like, there's no way I can become a billionaire by just buying small multifamily outside of Buffalo in these small rural towns. So I started to get shiny object syndrome. And I looked around at all these other investors that I was friends with, what they were doing. I learned about self-storage. I went to self-storage conferences. I learned about mobile home parks. I had a mentor who was doing Zoom calls with me, teaching me about mobile home parks. I looked at campgrounds. I put offers in on campgrounds. I was about to do a syndication on a campground. And all these things I was learning about. And finally, I settled on campgrounds. I started to kind of take a little action. And then two of the campgrounds just fell through during the due diligence. And I realized after that fact that I actually wasn't that bummed out, that I actually really was kind of glad that it was almost a relief. And after that time, I just focused on what I was doing, my long-term rentals, building some short-term rentals, but all in my market. And I have done a lot of personal development to realize that I am not the person that is going to be chasing after that billion-dollar dream. I was on a podcast the other day and they asked me if you were sitting or you could have a lunch with anybody in the world or spend the day with them, whatever it was, anybody in the world or anybody that, alive or dead. And my answer, and this actually kind of shocked me. I wasn't expecting this, so I really thought about it, but I've been so intentional about this, was my kids. Like I would want, if I had a full day free, they had a full day free, I would want that day to be with my kids. I wouldn't want to go and spend it with someone else. And that has like completely changed how I see wealth in my eyes. Is I don't want to strive to just work and work and work and like one day have this massive amount of wealth. It's really the time freedom for me and what I'm able to do with that money. So I've really like shifted and pivoted on that a lot as to how I see wealth, but it's definitely more of the time spent with my kids and then also the stress. Like I do not like to have a lot of stress and I'm not cut out for it. I don't have the work ethic. I don't have the endurance for it. I just want to be able to wake up every single day and to build a new business if I want, or go to the lake if I want. And I want to be able to have that option every single day where I'm not tied down to anything. And if I would have gone and I would have done syndications and all that, I would have been responsible to other investors. I always look at it as to, okay, if I'm making a decision that has a monetary consequence, who is it affecting? If I'm going to lose $1,000 today, if I don't go to this project, if I put it off until tomorrow, I'm losing $1,000. If my son has a field trip, I'm losing that $1,000 to go on that field trip because it's affecting me and I'll eat it. But if it was hurting a partner, another investor, something like that, I couldn't make that decision to go and lose their $1,000. And so I think I've really come to the realization of like, I don't want to be tied to other people. I don't want to be responsible to them because I want to be able to make decisions for my family and for myself that if they're going to affect anyone financially, it's going to be me. And I've learned to kind of figure out how that's going to impact my life and just having the freedom to be able to make, better decisions and things like that. But one thing that we've really changed our strategy with is when we've been doing rentals, we've been purchasing properties that have like old charm and character. And we're really kind of transitioning our business model to providing housing that is not your standard apartment. So we just remodeled this house that was built in 1920, and a guy that designed Bon-Ton stores, he owned the property, and he passed away and his sister sold it. It was crazy inside, like zebra wallpaper, like all these different things, to just tons of like newspaper articles tacked on the wall, all this stuff. It was just a mess. But behind the mess, you could see there was like some character and some uniqueness. So some of the wallpaper we left, we refinished all the hardwood floors. We painted the clawfoot tub black. We kept the vanity. It was an old dresser vanity he had in the bathroom. And yesterday, the tenants that we moved into there, the girl was crying. She was so excited and so happy that this was going to be her home, and she couldn't wait. Her and her boyfriend were moving in together for the first time. I wanted to start crying because I was so sad I couldn't go there anytime I wanted anymore and just enjoy the beauty of it. But me and my business partner just like talked as to like that was so much more rewarding. We're obviously still cash flowing on the property, but like being able to have the time to take the time to make such a beautiful home for someone, that was so much more rewarding, and still monetary, value to it, of course, too. So those are just some of my thoughts on wealth.
No, I love that. And I love that. I mean, it's so funny. Like, that's such a great answer. And I'll admit, like, I don't even know that I would have said, I love hanging out with my daughter, right? But if someone was like, oh, I would have picked someone that I didn't know that I otherwise could hang out with. And I think that's brilliant, because that you've chosen your kids, because you you do make that choice every time you decide you're going to do something, do something else.
Yeah.